Welcome. In today's video, we are going to be talking about how to build audio effects racks to spice up any sound. And specifically today, we're going to be building audio effects racks to spice up piano patches because we are on livekeyboardist.com here. Thank you all for joining me today. It's always so wonderful to spend Thursday afternoons working on sound design with y'all. And if you are watching the replay, stick around because there's going to be tons of valuable content for you. Feel free to drop a like and subscribe if you are new here. My name is Brett Pontecorvo. I am the face behind livekeyboardist.com, where I help keyboard players master sound design, build fantastic live setups, and, you know, just get a real hand on performing live, because it's great to do it in the studio, but we want to take this to the people. We want to make Ableton a part of our instruments. If you want to go deeper with me, you can check out the description below where you can book a private session, and I can help you one-on-one do some of these things. But for right now, let's get right to it. Today we are building audio effects racks to control your sounds live. So let's jump over here to Ableton. Ableton is the program that I use to perform live, and what I've got loaded in right now is just a really simple piano patch. This piano patch is Contact's Grandeur, I believe. See? Testing my memory now. Yeah, so we got the Grandeur that we're working with. I actually really like this sound. This is my go-to piano patch because it just sounds like a piano. It doesn't sound like someone else's piano. It just sounds like a piano, and it's a good starting place. So when you get a patch, the first thing you need to do is just listen to it. And something that's really nice about this is if you listen to the bass, it is really present. It's really there, but it's not woofy, right? It's really unoffensive. So the questions that we should be thinking about here is like, how did this make me feel? A little bit bored maybe, but it sounds good. It sounds like a good piano. Now, I play a lot of jazz and I also play a lot of worship music, and these are two very different styles, but we're going to go ahead and just sort of think from the standpoint of how can I make this sound come alive and have a lot of character. So before we even get to the audio effects racks, we want to be saying, okay, how can I bring out the natural sound of this instrument? And I think the first thing we can almost always do is assume that there is a little bit too much happening on the low end. Now, this instrument in particular is pretty good there, but I like to always just sort of have a high-pass filter around 90 to just make sure we're not stepping on anyone's toes sonically. It's a really great first step, and I'm actually just going to collapse this because we don't need to look at it anymore. Now, one really easy way to bring out the character of a sound is to add a tiny bit of compression. Now, we don't have to overkill the compression. All this is going to do is it's going to sort of tame the sound. So the peaks, the sounds that are really loud, it's going to bring those down, and the sounds that are a little bit quiet, it's going to bring them up. So think about, you know, if you're singing, not all sounds are the same volume, so we need a way to really even those out. Now, for this case, I'm going to assume that this piano patch is going to be played in a room where there is maybe a lot of people, but definitely a room where you're not going to be able to hear all of the details. So what we want to do is we're going to compress this quite a bit. Now, it's not because that's the only way to do it. It's just because we're going to be using our audio effects racks to really get the character out, and our performance is going to start to rely a little bit more on how we're manipulating our software and a little bit less on our fingers, because we're not necessarily playing classical music, although if you are, that's amazing. I'd love to see what you're doing. But we are positioning ourselves to create a sound that sounds good in a big room in front of a live audience that's able to compete with electric guitars, and a compressor is going to help this. So here's my sound, and we're going to start just by pulling this threshold back. And what that does is it tells the compressor when to start compressing the sound. All right, there we go. So I really want this compressor to hit almost every note because this is sort of the first pass we're going through. So we want a pretty quick attack, but we don't want it to squash. So I'm going to set that at 0.3, and we want a really long release so that sustain comes out for a long time. So let's have a listen. Yeah, so that sound's already got a ton more sustain, and I'm going to add just a touch of makeup gain back. And that just replaces some of the volume that we've lost. And you can even hear already that's sort of ringing out if I turn this off. And just a little bit more present, but we've created some problems for ourselves, right? Because if you listen closely, especially in that upper register, we're getting some extra harmonics that are popping out a little bit. And so we're going to use EQ8 again. Yes, it is okay to use more than one. And we're going to use this to sort of tame whichever parts of the sound are not working for us. So Ableton has a very cool function where we can click these headphones, and then it allows us to just listen to whatever frequency we are holding on. So I'm going to play some notes here. And my goal here is to try and find that treble frequency. Which is maybe right about here. Nope, there it is. Do we hear that? Yep, we don't like that. We're going to get rid of that. So I just took number 3. And we're going to use this guy here, which is literally going to pull that frequency out for us. Maybe make it a little bit wider. Okay, so now we've gotten rid of that annoying hum up there. Cool. Now let's see, is there a part of this sound that sounds interesting that we maybe want a little bit more of? So okay, I don't like that, so I'm going to pull some of that out. It's right around 300 hertz. And if you have any questions while I'm working through this, feel free to pop them in the comments. Even if you're watching the replay, I do respond to almost every comment. Okay. I like this. This is a good sound, right? It's got just some interesting texture there. Cool, so let's go ahead and A-B this. I'm going to quickly group these together so you can just hear. Here's our sound before any effects. Okay, and if I turn them on. So it's a really present sound. It's got a little bit more we've added over here, but it's complete, it's present, it's going to compete with your guitars. So what we just made here is just some effects that are going to help our piano start, okay? This is our starting point, and now what we need to do is say, okay, how am I going to perform with this piano, right? How can I make this instrument super flexible? And Ableton makes that really easy using audio effects rack. So we're going to go ahead and add one. So up at the top of our audio effects, we've got audio effects rack, and it's going to look like this, but I'm going to open this up so you can kind of see what's happening here. We've got 8 macros, and each of these macros we're going to use to control audio effects that are in our audio effect rack, and then we'll map these so we can use them live. So I'm going to start with reverb. Reverb is it's a great thing, but here's the deal with reverb, okay? In my opinion, there are 2 types of reverb, okay? Either your reverb is meant to be a part of the sound so that the sound sounds more realistic or sounds better in space, and I think that's the typical use, or it is an audio effect and it's designed to just be an audio effect. It's designed to not necessarily sound natural, but to sound like an effect. So today, this is an effect. Okay, we're going for an effect here. So we want a giant room, we want giant stereo field, and we want a huge decay time. I don't know what this is going to sound like, but let's listen. Yeah, okay, that sounds insane. Let's pull the shape down. So those lower shape numbers tend to be a little warmer. Cool. All right, I'm going to turn my pre-delay to nothing. Maybe bring this to 5. Nice. Okay, let's pull the spin down. Okay, so what's nice about that is we turn the spin down on these early reflections. Our sound is getting a little bit more tinny, yes, but it's getting a little bit less out of hand. So I can dig that, and let's get a good chorus setting here. So we'll do modulation just underneath, so 0.89. Cool. Okay, so here's my dry sound. And here's just a little bit of reverb. Okay, and here it's totally reverbed out. It's like a whole nother instrument. And it's kind of like a pad, right? So we've created something that's really cool here. I like it. So what we're going to do is we're going to map a macro to this dry wet knob here. So when I click map, I can click my dry wet. Boom. So here we go. Now, I can control the amount of reverb using this knob. And I'm going to go ahead and map that knob to my controller here. Now, if you're looking for a fantastic controller, what I really like to use is the Novation launch control. It's what's sitting on my instrument right now, this Novation launch control. It's sturdy, it feels amazing, and you know, it feels like it's a part of your instrument. I also really like that it has fixed knobs, which means my knob is always going to reflect this audio effect rack. So here is your reverb. Now, something to note about audio effects racks is that all of these things will run in parallel, meaning it'll be processed as if it was just going through that and then mixed all together before it comes out. So if you wanted a delay on the reverb, you'd have to put it in the same one. But what we're going to do now is we are going to put an auto filter on this channel here. So let's grab one of those. Now my auto filter, I'm going to put right here, and we'll nest this later, but we want the auto filter to affect everything, and this is a really simple effect. So we'll turn the resonance up, and we're going to map this frequency. Well, we'll do it here for now. So we'll click map, frequency, boom. So now I can control the frequency of this auto filter. We'll exit out of mapping mode, and I'll map this to my Novation launch control. And if you want to get your hands on one of these, you can do so with the link in the description below. But check out here. So with my dry wet off and my frequency all the way open, here's my piano sound. Now I'll bring in a little bit of my dry wet. And as I pull this filter back, I've got a totally different piano sound. It's almost like a bit of a toy piano. Sweet. So, that is that for that. Now, something I also really like to do with pianos is I like to have an option to add a little bit of grit, but only to one frequency. So I'm going to drop another audio effect rack in here, and I'm going to label this dirt. It's not really going to sound like dirt, but it's the heart of the meaning there. So I achieve this by doing two things here. So we're going to start with a saturator, and we'll drop that into our dirt rack here. And I'm also going to label everything so you know what you're working with. But saturator, boom. And then I'm also going to create a new chain. And I'm going to call this dry. And for the saturator, ahead of time, I'm going to put an auto filter in here, because I really only want to add a little bit of character to one region of the sound. Bring up the resonance here. So if I solo this, you'll hear that it's isolating one frequency. If I unsolo it, right? So we are going to add, let's make this maybe a little bit resonance. So we're going to add some drive, but just to what has been isolated here. And we're going to make this match. So frequency, about 1.5K. Actually, I think I want that higher. We'll do 2K. And what this is going to do is this is going to just add some extra harmonic information. We'll turn the depth up. So this is a little bit abrasive, maybe. But check out what happens when I mix it back in. So it's added a ton of presence that we didn't have otherwise. And what we can do is we can put a utility in front of this. And this is what we're going to use to control if anything comes out at all. So you'll see in my dry channel here, which has nothing on it, I've got sound coming out. But in my wet channel, I've got sound going in, and I'm using this gain control to control how much is actually making it all the way over. So I'm going to map this macro here. It's a tricky thing about macros a little bit is that you kind of have to map it within each one. So this is our audio effect rack here, and we'll set the maximum at 0 so we don't want this clipping. But then what I need to do is come back and map this macro to this macro. And I'll rename this dirt. So, regular piano sound. And as I bring this up, just a little bit more presence in the upper range, right? Which is just a really nice thing to have access to. I find that when certain sections build, I like to turn up this effect. Now, the cool thing about building these racks is that you can save this as a preset and drag it into whatever you're working with. And if you're looking for some great piano sounds, I've got 6 6 piano sounds made only with Ableton stock plugins that you can check out at livekeyboardist.com/pro piano effects racks. But for now, we need a delay. And I really like a ping pong delay. So we'll go ahead and drop this in here. And what we'll do is we'll choose ping pong, and let's just have a listen. Cool. So we'll turn the feedback down, and what we'll map is the dry wet. And Ableton's delay is really nice because it gives us the ability to modulate this filter section. So what I like to do is I like to have just a touch of filter modulation, like 20%, and then a tiny bit of time modulation with the repitch mode. So as I bring this up, it sort of detunes. I'm going to make this more extreme than you want it to be so you can hear what's happening. Right, so you hear that detuning. So just a little bit of detuning is really cool. And if we put on our metronome, hopefully that didn't make anyone deaf. And I turn this dry wet up, and I'm playing like an eighth note pattern. So we get this really cool, interesting effect, and with that detuning, we get just a nice, almost chorusing, something cool to have. So I'll call this delay. Cool. So let's go ahead and make sure all of these are mapped now to my controller. And let's see what we can kind of create. So tons of control, tons of ability to really manipulate all of this stuff. So let's add one more thing that's really nice to have, and this is particularly nice if you're playing in with a live band, or if you're playing to a metronome, I think in particular. If you have got auto pan popped in here, you can create like a cool bouncing effect by just choosing this and hitting reverse and making the phase 1, so you can hear what this sounds like. The clock. Aha. Okay, this has to be afterwards. So let's do this. Rename. We'll name this bounce. And let's pull it out for now. I like to have this set at quarter notes, elusive as they may be. And we're getting just awesome results. From using just our effects racks. We'll go ahead and let's see, we can do this by, think through that one. We can wrap them all. That's what we'll have to do. So we'll group those together just so we have the ability to control everything in one place. We'll choose map here, and we're going to map to, oops, we want this to be to amount. Then we'll do this one. We'll map to here if we can. Yep, great. And then we can map. We can't map backwards. That's okay. We'll map this amount to my audio effects here. Cool. All right, friends. Now here's the cool thing about this is I can drag this audio effect rack. If I save this to Piano FX, I can save this just by clicking here. It's already in this, and then if I wanted to drag this to anywhere else, I could put this on any instrument. I can use it on any piano. So this is a really powerful way to just allow yourself to have some control over what's going on. Now, if you found this video helpful, do please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. If you are looking for some great piano sounds, you can check out livekeyboardist.com/pro piano effects racks. And any of the gear used in this video will be linked in the description below. Thank you guys so much for spending your Thursday afternoon with me. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week on Sound Design Thursdays.